Cory Bernardi is about to join One Nation. A statement has just been released by the One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson, that the former Liberal and then Australian Conservatives senator is about to rejoin politics. He will be the South Australian leader of One Nation at the upcoming state election. The announcement will be made formally tomorrow in Adelaide, and Cory Bernardi will join us on Paul Murray Live tomorrow night from Adelaide. A notice has just been sent to the media that the One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson, will be in Adelaide with the former Senator for South Australia, Cory Bernardi, as the party's leader in the state and lead candidate for the Legislative Council election, which is on March the 21st. This is the most significant defection in state politics for some period of time, and certainly a major announcement in terms of people wanting to rejoin politics and rejoin politics under the banner of the surging One Nation. There had been speculation that this was to be a federal political announcement, but no, this is an announcement about Cory Bernardi leading the upper house ticket in the South Australian election. It's important to know that you need about 8% of the vote. One Nation is polling well above that right now across South Australia to win an upper house seat. It is a statewide vote, and therefore the chances of the polling turning into an elected representative is pretty good. Cory Bernardi is about to join One Nation, formally announced tomorrow, and our mate will be here to talk about the whys and what he wants to do and why he wishes to re-enter politics under the flag of One Nation tomorrow night, exclusive here on Paul Murray Live. As we know, tomorrow the Reserve Bank is likely to raise interest rates. Now, hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully the media has collectively got it wrong, but the expectation is that by this time tomorrow night we are talking about having to pay even more off our home loans.
Rate hike is looking all but certain when the RBA delivers its first decision of the year tomorrow.
Mortgage holders are bracing themselves with the Reserve Bank expected to raise interest rates tomorrow.
Now, traditionally, I could take you uphill and down dale through an awful lot of information about why this is taking place, but you know the reality that inflation is now out of control. It is back to closer to 4% than it is 3%, and the Reserve Bank wants it between 2 and 3%. Literally 12 months ago was when the first of the interest rate cuts took place in 2025. It helped secure the re-election of the Labor government. But the Treasurer is, of course, going to have to find a way to, well, accept the blame. Although the ABC is reporting this evening that he has rejected any responsibility for high inflation. But with no further ado and no further song and dance, I just want to point you to Jim Chalmers in 2022, when he was in opposition and rates went up once. They went up a further 12 times after he became Treasurer, and they will go up for the 13th time, probably tomorrow. Pay attention to what Jim Chalmers used to say when interest rates go up.
This is a full-blown cost of living crisis on Scott Morrison's watch, and now interest rate rises are about to be part of the pain. Now, this Prime Minister has an excuse for everything and a plan for nothing.
Well, of course, the plan of the Labor Party when they were making those statements was, and I quote, from the Prime Minister and the Labor Party, that a Labor government will lower the cost of living. And we know that that is not true, that that has not happened in virtually any way, shape or form. And to drive the point home, while tomorrow the Federal Parliament will vote on freezing the federal government taxes on beer, on spirits the taxes will continue to increase. In fact, just this week, spirit taxes have now hit $108 a litre. And this means, according to the Spirits and Cocktails people of Australia, imagine having that job, the latest rise will mean $32 of a standard 700ml bottle of gin or whiskey is now tax going straight to the government. And while the government will want praise on the day when interest rates will potentially increase tomorrow, you should also know that they have increased taxes just in the past couple of days on petrol. And if you wanted to know why Pauline Hanson is surging, it's because she is the only major political leader who isn't just noticing this, but making noise about it tonight.
of Labor Party. They are going to increase fuel excise tomorrow. It's going up to 52.6 cents litre plus GST. It's the first one of this year. Another one that's happening later in the year. Don't forget that.
It is now more than half of every dollar that you spend per litre on petrol is now tax. You go to the Australian Taxation Office website and it will show you that now 52.6 cents of every single litre of petrol that you buy, every single time you buy petrol, 52.6 cents per litre goes to the government, who tomorrow will try to pretend that they care about cost of living if interest rates hit the 13th rise on their watch. You saw their outrage and how personal the cost of living situation was, and was all to blame off one interest rate rise under the previous government, an increase in petrol, an increase in spirits, and a whole lot of other taxes, which mean this government is getting more tax than any government ever before. But this government is spending more money than any government ever before. So much so that we will have not one, not five, but 10 federal budget deficits. Each one of those, be it 10 billion, 20 billion, 25, 50 billion, it gets added to the already almost $1 trillion in government debt. That means, of course, that the priority of paying off the credit card goes from the 10th most important thing that happens in the budget to slowly but surely the 9th, the 7th, the 6th, and in the case of places like Victoria that believe you can ring up debt forever, it ends up going into the top 5 of all things government does. So spare me your care for cost of living, Prime Minister. Spare me your sympathy to the homeowners and mortgage owners of Australia tomorrow, Treasurer. It's all got worse, way worse, on your watch. Now, as you know, the coalition, in again, out again, hokey pokey. David Littleproud, he survives as the leader. You've heard it all a million times by now. Meeting happened this evening between Susan Lee and David Littleproud. Expectations are that this thing is going to get back together. But, gee, some people have said some things in just the past couple of weeks that makes it hard to believe it is going to be anything but a rough ride, even if everyone is back in the tent.
You think you can just win as the Liberal Party, do you?
It's happened before, Andrew.
If we go to the next elections as a Liberal Party and they go as a National Party, then that's okay.
Our job as an opposition here is not to, rotate chairs in the shadow cabinet or the shadow ministry. It's to hold the Labor government to account.
We're gone. Let me remove the ambiguity. We've gone. It was untenable.
Our party room has made it very clear we cannot be part of a shadow ministry under Susan Lee.
So the expectation is that by question time tomorrow, when everyone's back in the Parliament and the government again will be patting itself on the back, despite the fact that halfway through question time tomorrow at 2:30 Canberra time, the Reserve Bank will make its decision. Again, fingers crossed it is not an increase in interest rates, but most likely will be. Most likely will end up being thousands of dollars more for people paying off mortgages of the average, which is about $750,000 a year, or median, or 1.5, or even more, depending on how much people have borrowed. That should be the focus, but the internal wranglings of the coalition, well, it remains the focus where, yes, the time that Parliament has not been sitting since the hate laws were controversially passed a couple of weeks ago means, well, technically there's been no change in the Parliament and technically it'll all be okay by tomorrow. But there's been a lot of damage that has been done. How permanent? We'll discuss it, among others, with Matt Canavan a little bit later in the program. No Sooks, no Lefties tonight. We'll also have Jacinta Price on the show. Put on that with the breaking news of Cory Bernardi. It's a big and busy show. James Morrow as well. As for Kevin Hogan, he is the Deputy Leader of the National Party. He spoke to the ABC and it looks like a deal is imminent.
I would think that's probably unlikely. I mean, we've had a preliminary chat tonight. We've got things to discuss. We're going to take some ideas back to our party room and have a chat about them. But look, again, tonight was a really good, civil, cooperative and friendly chat.
So let us get to the surging force that is Pauline Hanson. The story gets better for One Nation each and every night, not just with this breaking news. The legendary figure of Conservative politics is willing to re-enter and to lead the charge at the state level. Cory Bernardi, again on the show tomorrow night here. The only interview he'll be doing will be with us tomorrow night. Looking forward to that. But of course, we know that one of the great surges that have happened in the polls has been One Nation with my age group, people that are Gen X, the people who have just had enough of the way that the system has worked to this point. 35% of Gen X people now say they're going to vote One Nation if there was an election anytime soon, just in front of the Labor Party. And it is even, of course, with baby boomers. To explain the specific phenomena of Gen X voters, and Gen X voters are people between the ages of 46 and 61, or a little more easily to understand, say 45 to 60, my dear friend Peter Credlin was talking to Cos Samaras, the man from Redbridge who did the poll that has shocked the nation.
One Nation is the largest party for Gen X in this country right now. It's 35%. But it's classic Gen X too, right? So they are anti-establishment to a certain extent. Most of them are non-university educated, working class conservatives. They're the sort of voters we see flock into Reform, to Trump, to other conservative parties in Europe. They have lived a life where they've worked long hours, they've worked hard, and they've experienced a substantial decline in living standards. We find these individuals are the most, the term I'll use is they are One Nation's Praetorian Guard. They are absolutely determined to send a signal to Canberra.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in the same way that people who may well have voted Republican their whole life frankly became Trumpers, the same is about to happen, if not has already happened, when it comes to One Nation. Now, of course, I need to point out here, the reality is that the centre-right and right-wing side of Australian politics, that pie has not grown since the election. It is still 55-45, with 55% of the country being the centre-left or the far left. Centre-right and the right is still at 45%, so 55%, I should say. For Labor and the anyone but Labor on the centre-right is now sitting at 45%. But to give you an idea about just how significant the generation gap is I did some research today and I went and had a look at the Australian Electoral Commission and actually had a look at the electoral roll. These are the number of people per those demographics and how it starts to stack up. People basically over the age of 45 could well be about to deliver an earthquake on Australian politics. 3.1 million people are between 18 to 29. Their number one pick is the Labor Party at 34, the Greens at 26. For millennials who are between the ages of 30 and 45, there are 4.6 million registered voters in that group. They currently back Labor 33 to the Greens 17 and the Liberal Party at 23. Gen X, One Nation and baby boomers, with everyone over the age of 62 included above that number of 80, you are talking about there, 9, 10 million people. So there is a very significant number of people. Now, you can split the electoral roll 50-50, as in over 50, under 50. If you start to move it a little bit further down to fit that Gen X, then it ends up being the majority of voters are now Gen X and above. The majority of those voters claim in polling right now that they want to vote for One Nation. Now, in part, one of the reasons why they want to vote for One Nation is because they are tired of being told to compromise. They have to compromise in almost every other area of their life, and they have played good when it comes to compromising about how they vote. We have seen it at multiple elections, and certainly at the last election when it comes to the upper house, and that whether the message is imperfect or not, whether the messengers are imperfect or not, One Nation is closer to their central sense of self, their central sense of a country and about the direction in which it needs to move. These people, in my view, are not coming back. In my view, there might be some numbers somewhere, but essentially, as younger generations made their choices on the Greens, this generation and older voters are making their split. This is really difficult and diabolical news for the alternative party of government to this point, which has been the Liberal Party, in coalition with the National Party, or even if the Liberals were out on their own and essentially became bigger versions of the Teals, the National Party stayed on its own and wanted to say that it was already a version of One Nation inside the Parliament. There are big challenges, and I don't know that there are some people inside the Liberal world who even know how big the problem is, how permanent the problem is. I agree with Andrew Bolt a little bit earlier this evening when he observes about just how permanent this may be. I agree with Peter Credlin when she speaks earlier about the need for clarity inside the Liberal Party. All of this is fascinating to watch, and all of this has been happening before our own eyes. One of the reasons I think Gen X, by the way, has broken up with the Libs, but more importantly has embraced Pauline Hanson. Yes is immigration, yes is the fact that for 30 years she's lived a real life. This is a woman who's been in and out of Parliament and in and out of jail because of people who wanted to keep her out of Parliament. Well, one of the ways that Gen X has always communicated is to take the piss out of things. Now, you can do that with The Simpsons, you can do that with South Park, you can do that with the movie around the War on Terror, which of course was Team America, World Police, or in terms of Australia, it's the cartoons. The cartoons which have been going for years, which are fabulous, and the brand new movie, which is a super progressive movie, all one word, superprogressivemovie.com, is becoming a hit. I know plenty of my mates who have decided to pay the $15 to sit down, watch it as a group and giggle away, even at times to be shocked by just how far the movie goes. But yes, the movie goes that far. So this is not overnight, which means it cannot be reversed overnight. The ability to laugh at everyone is something that Gen X loves, has always loved. I repeat, from The Simpsons to South Park to the Pauline Hanson cartoons, this is one of the ways that Gen X has always communicated and always given the middle finger. The people who have made this brilliant film are a production company called Stepmates. Mark Robinson, you see often with my dear friend Chris Kenny, is a really funny and really clever bloke. He is surrounded by very talented people, but these are people who are creatives. And guess what the price of their creativity is to some of the absolute nutters that live in Melbourne? They attacked their office today, swastika and all, for obvious reasons. We blur that out, but Nazis are here and stepmates love Nazis. That's the oh-so-tolerant left when somebody pokes, quite correctly, fun at them. If you would like to support Pauline Hanson, support One Nation and support the people who have made this cartoon, get the movie. superprogressivemovie.com. superprogressivemovie.com. You can even gift it to a mate if they're a little too tight to pay for it. Now, speaking about people who aren't that tight when it comes to their cash, we know that elections are not cheap. They cost millions of dollars, but also they affect billions and nay, probably trillions of dollars worth of decisions that happen over the coming 3 years of an election. We learned today via the Australian Electoral Commission about just how much money third-party groups spent at the last federal election. Now, this could be third-party groups like private companies owned by Clive Palmer, who ended up, of course, funding so much of the Trumpeter Patriots, or so-called community organisations like Climate 200, who ended up funding the Teals. We learned today that Mineralogy, Clive Palmer's company, of which he has every right to do whatever he wants with its cash, spent $52 million at the federal election. Advance Australia spent $10 million at the election. Climate 200 spent $4 million, and so on and so on. So before you start to read the headlines, that will inevitably start to say that all of this money is just heavily weighted in favour of the quote-unquote right wing, with the exception of Trumpeter Patriots, which of course did not result in any members being elected. The difference between all of the people on that list and the union movement is that the union movement is the Labor Party. And I don't just mean that traditionally. I mean literally in their constitution, their donor has 50% of the say in the policy platform, who will be candidates, who makes up the ministry. None of those private donors that you will read about money in politics, have any such power. They do not have representatives in the parliament to do their bidding and to factionally hold in who gets to be a minister or not. So it is extraordinary to me that the laws of this country that have already been debated before the High Court suggest that unions that are already 50% of the Labor Party also get to spend money as if they weren't part of the Labor Party at all. And at this election, they spent $17 million. That puts them $7 million in front of Advance Australia. But once you start to put together 17 million from the unions, 4 million from Climate 200, and so on and so on. It is the left of Parliament that has been backed in by a lot more money than the so-called right. And there is a devil in the detail that deserves a bit more attention. There probably will be a question about this at some point in the next 2 weeks in federal Parliament, and it's to do with the CFMEU. Now, you know of the scandals of the CFMEU. You know of the claims about how their building sites have worked, not worked, and a whole lot of other things that certainly the good people of 60 Minutes, and specifically the reporter of Nick McKenzie, has brought to everyone's attention in not one, not two, but three versions of the big build stories that he has done. As a result, the Labor Party has tried to say it has nothing to do with the CFMEU. Don't quote me, quote him.
I announced that we would be expelling John Setka from the Labor Party because his values weren't appropriate, and we have taken this strong action against the CFMEU. The administrators have been put in place. That means that there won't be donations. That's not our concern.
Tim Wilson is the Shadow Minister with responsibility of keeping an eye on some of this stuff, and he has done excellent work. He's best on ground for the opposition tonight because he put out the following announcement today. After links to organised crime were revealed, the Prime Minister and Premier of Western Australia claimed they wouldn't take CFMEU cartel kickbacks. But today it has been confirmed that WA Labor took $26,800 from the construction division. Shadow Minister for Industrial Relations, Tim Wilson, said that the AEC's disclosure returns reveal the dependence of the Labor government on union bosses, and that's why the Prime Minister always makes sure that they are the first to benefit from government policy. So you heard the Prime Minister, nothing to do with the officials, nothing to do with the union, nothing to do with the cash. Well, $26,800 has gone to the Western Australian Labor Party. What it doesn't spend on its own stat campaigns, and of course can kick up to federal efforts, which is why there's a chance you're going to hear about this a lot more in the next couple of days. Well done to Tim Wilson. But of course, is there rolling coverage once this news was made public today? Well, no. Tumbleweeds. Why? Because, of course, people are shooting themselves metaphorically in the feet, the guts, the heart, the head when it comes to the coalition. There is plenty of fodder from how much it costs people to pay off their own houses to how much it costs to fill up your own car to be able to drop the kids off at school to how much it even costs to have a drink. But, of course, none of that gets talked about when the internal firing squad is using bazookas at the moment. To Victorian politics now, and we know the election will be up towards the end of the year. Before that, South Australia, where the breaking news tonight is Cory Bernardi on his way to One Nation to lead their party in the South Australian election. But in Victoria, of course, it is Jess Wilson versus Jacinta Allan. Now, Jacinta Allan is doing the good old-fashioned Labor playbook, which is essentially starting the election campaign now for an election which I think is in November. Jess Wilson will, no doubt, follow the same Liberal Party tradition of waiting until the official campaign starts 33 days out, and they'll all be surprised about, geez, how did this end up going the way that it does? Here is Jacinta Allan today, basically going into full election mode with the full power of the state government to promise whatever the hell they want to save their ass.
We are a Labor government with new solutions to make life easier, safer and more affordable. And this year our job as a strong, united Labor team isn't just to talk about what we've already delivered, it's to drive that next wave of change that we have made possible.
But something that people find frustrating, regardless of whether it's Liberal Labor, whether it is state or federal politics, which is that they're going to talk about billions of dollars for this in health and billions of dollars for this in education. Could you just fix the freaking potholes? I'm sick of how much tax we all pay for how garbage our roads are, especially when the federal government is, of course, now more than half of every dollar that you spend for a litre of petrol, 52 cents per litre, is now tax. Isn't it supposed to fix this stuff? Well, the Herald Sun has been focused on potholes for some time, and rightly so. It's the little stuff, but if you can't fix the little stuff, then who's going to believe anything major is going to change? Data obtained by the Herald Sun shows that there was an 8% increase statewide in the amount of potholes on Victorian roads in 2025 compared to the previous year. The total number of potholes reported increased from 11,585 to now 12,571. It's the equivalent of an extra 34 a day. Now, again, no one's going to win an election by promising to fix the potholes, but, geez, wouldn't it be great if somebody actually did? For her part, Jess Wilson today was trying to save her version of the Liberal Party from One Nation. And I'm not just talking about it in terms of the polls, I'm talking about it in terms of where is she going to go and how does she immediately get wedged by the Labor Party, who will try to pretend that somehow she is One Nation curious when we all know that she is of the progressive side of the Liberal Party. There is nothing One Nation about Jess Wilson, but she's had to pull out of an event. Why? Because Barnaby Joyce is going to be there. Why? Because Jacinta Allen gets to do crap like this and expect this as the type of politics from a government that demands 4 more years to screw Victoria.
She shouldn't have said yes in the first place to the invitation. I mean, you just can't take this Liberal outfit, this Liberal leader, seriously. If your first instinct is to rush off to a misinformation convention headlined by Barnaby Joyce and One Nation, what does that say to the rest of Victorians?
Oh, but the Greens are okay. You know, no preferences at all when it comes to... this is so boring, but it is going to be hammer, hammer, hammer. Albo won 2022 on a lie that cost of living would be better under his government. He won 2025 on a lie that Medicare was under threat and all the rest of the ooga booga. Labor is very good at this because it works. It is up to the Libs to have a game to be able to fight back, to not expect the role of friends in the media to do the fighting for them. No, get off your ass and fight it yourself. Push back hard on social media, push back hard on interviews, and push back hard on every time the nutters of the Greens have been the people who have voted for the laws that have made Victoria a worse place, not just under Andrews, but under her reign as well. But watch this space. I think it might be a little bit of wishful thinking. Meantime, I'd like to tell you about the politicians who, of course, you already pay for to be the politicians, and, of course, you know that we pay their staffers to create a bit of showbiz for ugly people. And by that I mean social media videos. Here's a Labor MP with some sexual advice.
Have you been told that if you're not waking up with an erection, you're not a real man? If someone online is telling you this is not health advice. It's pure marketing and it is dangerous.
Oh, thank goodness this is what our taxpayer money is spent on, her to be in Parliament and the staffer to film her to react to fake ads on the internet. Literally, politicians talking about pop-ups. That's what they're spending their time on today. As for Tony Burke, well, enjoy this piece of cinema.
What is a point of order?
A point of order is 2 things. One, it's where someone genuinely thinks the procedure of Parliament's not being followed. If someone thinks the procedure's not being followed, then they'll raise a point of order, and then the Speaker, the person in the giant chair, is basically the referee.
Do you remember when you learnt that either in school or at a school excursion to Canberra? No. Now we need to treat all of the adults watching like they're the kids in Year 6 who are learning how a bill becomes a law. And, of course, the Teals are in on all of this. This one from Kate Cheney in Western Australia.
Welcome back to Parliament for 2026. Here are 5 things I'll be working on this year. Number 1, the fight for a safe climate and clean environment is far from over.
Oh, then we're going to win the war together.